Everyone dreams of success. Winning the big game, getting the great job, winning awards. No one wants to be a loser. Dream of getting addicted to drugs, dropping out of school, or getting arrested. You don't dream of failing tests or missing the big shots or fumbling the presentation. You might have that as a nightmare, but it's not like your dream or your goal. When you were growing up, who did you hang on your wall? Muhammad Ali or the guy that he embarrassed in a fight? Michael Jordan or the kid who didn't get drafted? Amelia Earhart or the guy who couldn't get the plane off the ground? Tom Brady or the guy who got drafted last in the NFL? Neil Armstrong or the guy who threw up every time he trained to go to space? Serena Williams or your middle school tennis coach who was just doing it for the extra money? You idolize those who win. You dream of being like champions, not so much with the losers of history. You don't want to be like them. So what do? You look at the winners and you try to imitate their behavior and their methods. What was their strategy? What diet did they eat? How did they train? What degree did they get? You study the winners to learn everything that they did to help them achieve greatness. And that's a smart move. That's what all the people you idolize did too. They watched, they learned, they applied the lessons. And here's what I've noticed and learned about those who have reached the highest positions, won the big awards, and become the greatest. They also learned from the losers. Why? Because the losers had big dreams too. They wanted to be great. They wanted to win the game, to get the awards, to invent the great thing. But something happened, and instead of achieving their dream, they lost. Winston Churchill once said, "Those that fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it." If you don't learn from those who lost and failed and messed up, you run the risk of making the same mistakes. My goal and our goal as a church is for you to be a lifelong follower of Jesus. I want you to follow the Lord and live the rest of your life with Jesus at the center. I want you to be obedient to his voice and follow the plans that he has for you and for your family. And he does have big, amazing plans for your life. Here's what's interesting. God has big, amazing plans for everyone. There's not a single person that has or ever will exist that God has not included in his plans. So what happened? Why have some succeeded while others failed? The Bible is our guidebook for living. It's full of stories of great men and women who did incredible things that changed the world. We get to read and study about Jesus, the greatest of all time. But the Bible also tells us the story of those who didn't change the world, who missed their chance, the losers. And over the next few weeks, we are going to look at the life of one of the biggest losers in the Bible. A guy who seemingly had it all, but missed out on God's plan. We will study and learn from his mistakes. The story of Saul begins in 1 Samuel chapter 8. Samuel was a great prophet of the Lord, and he was getting too old to lead Israel. So he appointed his sons as the new leaders, and his sons failed. So all of the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel. They said to him, "You are old." It's not exactly the nicest thing to go to your spiritual authority and just say, "Hey, you're old. You are old, and your sons do not follow your ways. Now appoint a king to lead us, such as all the other nations have." The people of Israel wanted a king, and Samuel knew this was a bad idea, and so did God. So the Lord instructed Samuel to warn the people of Israel what would happen if they got a king. He told them, a king will take your sons and make them serve with his chariots and his horses. He will take the best of your fields and your vineyards and olive groves and give them to his attendants. Samuel said, hey, a king will take your children and make them his servants. Getting a king would mean suffering and persecution and slavery for the people of Israel. Now, to me, once you hear that getting a king is going to result in slavery, suffering, and pain, hey, you know what, Samuel? We were just kidding, man. It was a joke. Just messing with you. We didn't want a king. We were just testing you. You passed. We don't want one either. But of course, that's not what happened. But the people refused to listen to Samuel. No, we want a king over us. Then we will be like all the other nations, with a king to lead us and to go out before us and to fight our battles. Everything we're talking about over the next 4 weeks could have been avoided if they would have just listened to God. Samuel even told them, when that day comes, you will cry out for relief from the king you have chosen, but the Lord will not answer you on that day. I've seen that hundreds of times. A spiritual leader warns about a choice and the consequences that you will experience if you make that choice, and you ignore them. And then, when the consequences happen, you come back and you're mad at them and God. It was your fault. You made the dumb decision. You were foolish. Now, we're not learning from the Israelites, but here's a really good bonus lesson for you from this story. When God warns you about a decision, don't go through with it. Dumb choices get dumb results. Don't be dumb. Yeah. Some of y'all can write that down for a little later. Just highlight what the pastor teach today. He just said, don't be dumb. Now, when I was working on this message, I thought that would make the perfect next First NLR t-shirt. Slap a logo on the back, and on the front it just says, don't be dumb. But our team said no. But I printed some anyway. That's right. I think it's perfect. Straight to the point, don't be dumb. So if you wear a size medium and you have friends, oh wow. Aren't y'all all friends? Okay, well, I'll let y'all talk about who needs that shirt later. What I was gonna say was, if you have dumb friends and you need to send them a subtle message about not being dumb, here's the shirt, and now they've all called each other dumb. And then I also have an extra large. If anybody needs an extra large that has dumb friends. Micah, would you go find someone who needs this Don't Be Dumb shirt? Just somebody who has really dumb friends. Micah, you're getting... This is great. This is great. What happened at church today? Well, first the pastor told us not to be dumb, and then people were arguing over who had the dumber friends. Real encouraging day. The people of Israel, they wanted a king. So the Lord answered, listen to them and give them a king. And who would their king be? None other than King Saul. Now, believe it or not, the Bible doesn't tell us a lot about King Saul. He ruled from around 1050 to 1010 BC. And Saul was the son of a wealthy Benjamite named Kish. And according to 1 Samuel 9, Saul was tall and handsome. See, Saul was the ideal candidate for king. He was good looking, he was strong, he was tall, he was liked and respected, he was regal, and he carried himself with elegance. Saul didn't start out as a loser. In fact, he was a major winner. Life had already been great for Saul. Wealth and beauty and strength. And then one day, while Saul was out looking for his father's lost donkeys, he met Samuel. And Samuel invited him in for dinner, and then after he asked if he could talk to him privately. As they were going down to the edge of town, Samuel said to Saul, "Tell the servant to go on ahead of us." And the servant did so. "But you stay here for a while, so that I may give you a message from God." Suddenly the conversation took a turn. Now Samuel was giving Saul a word from God. Samuel told him that he would find the donkeys that he'd been searching for. He described a miracle that Saul would see. And then he told him that his life would change. He told Saul to go to a place called Gibeah. And as you approach the town, you will meet a procession of prophets coming down from the high place. The Spirit of the Lord will come powerfully upon you, and you will prophesy with them, and you will be changed into a different person. Once these signs are fulfilled, do whatever your hand finds to do, for God is with you. Go down ahead of me to Gilgal, and I will surely come down to you to sacrifice burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. But you must wait 7 days until I come to you and tell you what you are to do. Now, this is a pretty intense amount of stuff to throw at a guy as he's leaving town. Most people say things like, "Have a nice trip. Nice day for traveling." Not, "Hey, you're God's anointed first king of Israel, and he's going to show you signs, change your life, and then wait for me at Gilgal." This had to be intense, but this is an important detail from Saul's life. God had a plan for Saul. God anointed him king of Israel and had mighty plans for his life. God's plan for Saul wasn't to be a loser. Not only did he have a plan, but God told him part of the plan. And as Saul turned to leave Samuel, God changed Saul's heart. And all these signs were fulfilled that day. Everything that Samuel said would happen, happened. And after a meeting of all the tribes of Israel, Saul was confirmed as the first king of Israel. Saul had promise and potential. He could have shaped the future of Israel. He could have been the great leader of Israel. He could have been the hero. Instead, he was the opposite. He failed as a leader, and he failed as a follower of God. So what happened? How did Saul go from a winner to a loser? Well, it all happened when he got to Gilgal. Saul attacked the Philistines. After all, Samuel told him, "Do whatever your hand finds to do, for God is with you." So Saul took soldiers and he attacked the enemy. And things started out pretty well. Word spread and many from Israel were coming to fight with him. But the Philistines were pretty upset. The Philistines assembled to fight Israel with 3,000 chariots, 6,000 charioteers, and soldiers as numerous as the sands on the seashore. They went up and they camped at Michmash, east of Beth-aven. Saul's attack on the Philistine outpost was an act of war. The Philistines were mad, and they were ready for a major battle. And when the Israelites saw that their situation was critical and that their army was hard-pressed, they hid in caves and thickets among the rocks and in pits and cisterns. Some Hebrews even crossed the Jordan into the land of Gad and Gilead. Saul remained at Gilgal, and all the troops with him were quaking with fear. The pressure was on. The Philistine army was massive, and Saul and the Israelites were afraid. But now you have to remember what Samuel told Saul. "Go down ahead of me to Gilgal. I will surely come down to you to sacrifice burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. But you must wait 7 days until I come to you and tell you what you are to do." You see, even though things were scary and the odds were stacked against him, Saul was right where God wanted him to be. This wasn't a surprise to God. Samuel gave Saul specific instructions to wait until he arrived. He waited 7 days, the time set by Samuel. But Samuel did not come to Gilgal, and Saul's men began to scatter. Samuel said 7 days, and he didn't show up right on time. So Saul was officially in panic mode. And instead of doing what the Lord told him to do, he took matters into his own hands. His men were afraid. They were scattering. Samuel wasn't there. So he said, "Bring me the burnt offering and the fellowship offerings." And Saul offered up the burnt offering. It's the first lesson we learn from Saul's life. Losers are impatient. The dictionary definition of patience is the capacity to accept or tolerate delay, trouble, or suffering without getting angry or upset. Being impatient means you can't do that. Now, my wife, Meredith, is one of the most patient people I have ever met. When things go wrong, she is calm and peaceful. When people are mean, she responds with grace and understanding. When her husband does something stupid, which is very, very rare, she navigates it with elegance. Today, we celebrate being married for 7 years. And I'm sure you're wondering, what's the secret sauce? What's the secret to staying so happy for 7 years? Well, it's 7 years of patience and 7 years of perfection. I mean, that's just how it happens. Not quite. Definitely on the patience side, not so much on the perfect side, as you're about to hear. Because I, on the other hand, I'm not very patient. Traffic drives me insane. Why do people drive so slow? Why must everyone on the road slow down to stare at wrecks on the other side of the highway? I'll never understand that. I'm the king of avoiding lines. If there's a long line or a wait time, I'm not interested in doing whatever it is anymore. I don't want to wait at a restaurant longer than 5 minutes. I don't like getting put on hold. If I call a company and I'm on hold for more than 30 seconds, I get annoyed. There can't be that many callers calling at the same time to that place that they need to put me on hold for that long. Occasionally, I have to make the journey to the DMV. I don't think I have to say anything else about that. Cable technician appointment windows. 3 hours. Why? Why can't they just tell you when they're going to come and show up? I'll never get it. I'm so impatient that I stop the microwave a few seconds before it hits 0. Because who needs the last 2 seconds anyway? I don't like to wait. And according to one survey, I'm not alone. 96% of Americans will knowingly consume extremely hot food or drink that burns their mouth. 63% do so frequently because they don't want to wait for it to cool off. More than half hang up the phone after being on hold 1 minute or less. 71% frequently exceed the speed limit to get to their destination faster, unless they live in Arkansas, where apparently we're the anomaly. Nearly a third of respondents ages 18 to 24 wait less than 1 second before bypassing a slow walker. When waiting for a table at a restaurant, nearly a quarter of respondents wait less than 1 minute before approaching the host again after the wait period has passed. Yep. It's what causes us to get impatient. Well, there's some different reasons. You get impatient when the pressure is on. You've got a deadline, you're stressed, got to get it done fast. When your expectations aren't met, I asked them to be here at 6 and it's 6:04. Where are they and why aren't they here? You get impatient when you don't see results. Hey, I went to the gym every single day last week. I didn't lose a single pound and I haven't seen a single ab up here. This is clearly not working. You get impatient when things don't happen when you think they should happen. There was a plan, and that plan is clearly falling apart. Now what are we going to do? You get impatient when money's tight. You've been taught that God blesses obedience, but your bank account is running low. So you don't give, and you even find ways to take money from work because they'll never know and you need it now. You get impatient when you're in a relationship and you're really, really in love with each other. You know what God's commands are regarding sex, but surely God can't expect us to wait until marriage. We're in love. You get impatient when your kids aren't growing at the pace that you think they should grow. I know they're young, but shouldn't they be able to live up to your unrealistic expectations of perfection now? You see, this is what happened to Saul. The pressure was on. Samuel wasn't there, and he couldn't wait any longer. So he abandoned God's plan, and he made the sacrifices on his own. And this is the part of the story that really breaks my heart. Just as he finished making the offering, Samuel arrived. And Saul went out to greet him. "What have you done?" asked Samuel. Saul replied, when I saw that the men were scattering and that you did not come at the set time and that the Philistines were assembling, I thought." See, the problem is that losers think my plans are better than God's plans. I see this happen all the time. One detail doesn't go how you thought it would or how you thought it should, and so you assume that God has failed you. You abandon his plan and you make your own. Your impatience leads you to take control. And the more we talk about Saul, the more we look at his life over this series, you will realize that this was a core issue for him. Instead of trusting God's plan, he got impatient and he made his own plan. Saul was arrogant, and he actually thought that he knew better than God. I knew I shouldn't have trusted that Samuel. Crazy old man. I thought, now the Philistines will come down against me at Gilgal, and I have not sought the Lord's favor. So I felt compelled to offer the burnt offering. I got to tell you, Saul probably didn't feel compelled. He felt overwhelmed and stressed. And to save face with Samuel, he made an excuse that sounded good in the moment. Losers make excuses. I know I messed up, but man, they pressured me into doing it. I was afraid, so I had to. I know it's wrong, but I learned it from my parents. You know, I'd rather do the wrong thing than nothing. There's some good logic, by the way. I had no other choice. Or my favorite excuse of all, the devil made me do it. See, losers, they push blame on someone else, or they make up a reason why they are justified. And that doesn't make you less of a loser. Now you're just a loser that people don't like. Samuel was furious. He told Saul the Lord's plan and to wait for him to arrive. But Saul didn't. And here's what we learn. Impatience leads to foolish decisions and terrible results. When you get impatient with traffic, you tailgate the person in front of you, you whip through traffic, and you speed. And now you've caused a wreck, got a speeding ticket, and you've delayed yourself even more. You got impatient with your team. You took matters into your own hands. You rushed through the work. You made mistakes. And it cost your company a ton of money, and now your job is in jeopardy. You couldn't wait any longer for God to give you the right boyfriend, so you went out and found one on your own. And he's a dud. He's lazy, he's mean, and he pushed you to sacrifice your boundaries. You just couldn't wait for your dream home. Even though you and your wife had credit card and college debt, you took out a massive home loan with the bank. And now 2 years down the road, you don't know if you're going to make it. You wanted to find the perfect church that met all your preferences. So you just kept hopping from place to place each time that church did something that you didn't like. And now you're not connected anywhere and no church is good enough. Rushed decisions rarely result in success or victory. When you get impatient, you ignore God's plans and you lose. Saul ignored God's plans because he just couldn't wait and because he didn't trust God. And because of his decision, he suffered incredible consequences. You have done a foolish thing, Samuel said. You have not kept the command the Lord your God gave you. If you had, he would have established your kingdom over Israel for all time. But now your kingdom will not endure. The Lord has sought out a man after his own heart and appointed him ruler of his people because you have not kept the Lord's command. Saul's impatience cost him everything. God's anointed king of Israel, who could have ruled for the rest of his life, and for generations his family would have reigned, lost it all because he couldn't wait. Don't be like Saul. Don't be impatient. Instead, trust God's timing. That was Saul's number one issue. He didn't trust God's timing. God had a plan for Saul, and if he would have waited a little longer, Samuel would have arrived, and his story would be completely different. Some of you have been in a season of waiting on God to fulfill his plan and his purpose for you, and you've wondered, is God even working? Why is this taking so long? And I get it. Waiting is difficult, but time and time again, God has proven his faithfulness. It may not be happening as fast as you want, but he is still working. Galatians 6:9, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time, God's time, we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. He has not forgotten you. He's not abandoned you. He will keep his promise. He will restore that relationship. He will bring your child back. He will heal you. He has a plan and he will make it happen, but it will happen in his timing, not yours. The Lord's instruction for Saul was to wait, to patiently wait until Samuel arrived. And for those of you in a season of waiting, the Lord would say the same thing to you. Wait on the Lord. Wait on him. Be patient. Keep waiting. Keep trusting that he is faithful and will do what he has promised. It may seem like all hope is lost, but God is still on the throne and still in control. He's a promise-making, promise-keeping God. And he has a plan for your life. Don't give up. You could be one moment away from his plan being fulfilled.